get underway. There's a couple more people coming in. I'll pass it over to Adrian to do a bit of an intro and the technical help for everybody.
Good evening, everyone. Again, welcome back. Or for those of you that are joining us for our second business town hall, we had such a great turnout last week that we decided to go again. Tonight, we're going to try to get to more of your questions again. 4 questions. What I will need you to do, if you are using the app or are on your computers or laptops, under the participants tab, you'll be able to see on the bottom there where it says an option to raise your hand. And I would ask you to do that, raise your hand when you have a question, and we will get you in the order they appear that way. For those of you that are calling in on your phones, to raise your hand, you just hit *9. If you find that we can't hear you, *6 is how you unmute yourself. So with that, I will turn it over to Eric and we will get started.
Sounds good. And actually, what I'm going to do is I usually get to go first. So I'm going to change it up tonight and let my friend and colleague Jim McDonell go, our MPP, to go up and start off with some updates from the provincial government. Then I'll switch over to my slides and cover a few things. So Jimmy, thanks for joining us again.
Well, and thanks for everybody for coming out. And I'll just see if I can share my screen here.
So the technology under pressure. There we go.
Yeah. There, is that showing up there all right?
Yep.
Okay, well, I know everybody is, feeling the effects of this virus, and especially the businesses that are trying to get by, because it's been I guess a terrible couple of months. So I just wanted to put together a few things. One thing we've done is we've put a website together that includes all the programs from that are available federally and provincially, because there's it gets quite confusing and you're not sure. So we've broken it down. You can go in and it's by family, by individual, by business, so that you can get an idea of just what is available from all levels of government. And it's www.covidsupports.ca/Jim McDonell. And it's a pretty good site. We had a fellow work on it out of our Toronto office. So some of the programs we have, of course, the Ontario Together, where we're looking at businesses offering their services, produce products that we really need to move ahead with our program of trying to get business back together. Needing more ventilators, more protective equipment, PPEs, and I know that a week ago they had evaluated more than 2,000 submissions, and they have some local people that are companies that are producing as well, everything from ventilators to equipment and masks. So this is great. Plus any donations people have, we have. Ontario Power Generation donated millions of the N95 masks, and it's just as an example. So it's a chance for people that have those supplies or know how to get them to bring them through. Because really, one of the biggest issue we have with opening up our business is making sure we have the supplies for our healthcare to meet the surge that'll take with it. So that'll be a topic for discussion. As some of the things we've done, we did deferral the provincially administered taxes to August 31st for any of the bills for your income tax. We're expecting we've deferred as well property taxes to municipalities, to our education portion, so that they can defer their taxes, which I think most of them locally have done. So we're trying to do whatever we can to, to lessen the cash flow requirements on everybody, including our businesses. This was the educational property tax deferrals. So we're looking at $1.8 billion of deferrals there, which gives the municipality more access to funds on the short term, so that they can either, as I say, they deferred the property taxes and other programs that they're trying to run. We doubled the health tax exemption for employers, to change. About 57,000 private sector employers will pay less in 2020, including about 30,000 more who would not pay employment health tax this year. So this amounts to a tax cut of about $355 million. Workplace safety expenses, we've deferred those as well. Immediate relief up to about $1.9 billion. So again, just another program to try to leave a little more money in your pockets. Government Ontario has frozen electricity prices, which really has a fairly significant amount of money. It's available to all small businesses, farmers, and of course the households and families. So it makes more money available, and it's I know personally it's about $40 or $50 a month at least in savings. And you consider you're at home, it's probably more than that actually. I guess the contentious issue is the closure of non-essential workplaces. Now I know that the order is to last till early May 1st. It may be extended, but I know it's going to be revised. They are working on that now, coming up with some new regulations. The calls I've been on, there's been lots of feedback. They brought up quite a few examples locally. The more not so much the businesses, but the way they could easily provide service. We talked about florists, we talked about our hardware stores. There's no reason why we can't set up a system that restricts the number of people inside, but still allows substantial number of customers to enter the store or carry through, just like a grocery store. I mean, our grocery stores aren't packed, but they have enough people that it keeps the cashiers busy, and they're set up. They've made some changes, and they have probably about 8 feet of separation between people in line for the cashes. But you can imagine if we had allowed, or we could allow more business to operate that way, it would really be a big help. And right now there's a lot of businesses that unfortunately are not able to operate. But again, this is all around. We thought by this time we'd probably move farther ahead on our businesses getting back to work, but we haven't been as successful as getting our healthcare supplies as we'd like to see. Some of the emergency equipment is our businesses that we have locally or internally in the province are working to convert their lines, and they're starting to produce equipment, but we haven't really been able to get much equipment offshore. And of course, we have some big demands. We have the province of Quebec that's got a little further in the curve. They have the March break a week before us, and it really impacted them to a great extent. And of course, they need a lot of these supplies as well. So anyway, just our contact information, 613-933-6513 or 800-514-9660, and our email address if you have any questions. We have people monitoring that in the telephones at jim.mcdonell@pc.ola.org. And again, just remember to stay home and stay safe wherever possible. So Eric, I guess I'll turn this over to you now. And
thanks, Jimmy. I think you have to end your screen share, and then I'll steal it over. I think I got it there. There we go.
Got it?
Yep, I think we got it there. So I've got some PowerPoint. We're getting more sophisticated here as we do more of these Zoom meetings. I just had a friend tell me that my lighting is terrible, so I will have a lamp for the next one so you can see me better, maybe as a start. But thank you to everybody that has joined us tonight. Much appreciated. I'm going to start off with the slide deck. I will say that I think for Jim and I, for both of our slide decks, we will email this to you tomorrow because we have everybody's email address. So if you wanted to get a phone number or a website link off of this, we'll send this out to you tomorrow. Again, just my office number in Cornwall, toll free, and Jim's as well. We get a lot of requests for the health unit's phone number. That's their toll free number. And also to direct questions there. As a business, if you have questions about social distancing protocols, the essential list and those types of things. The health unit has worked on that. And also for those that have some concerns about businesses and practicing that, I would encourage you to refer yourself to the health unit and provide the information there. We have our colleagues at the United Way of SDNG in the Social Development Council. They're working with a group that are responding with not-for-profits to COVID-19. They are continuing to work with many groups, and they're promoting these two key numbers. 211 is a service in Eastern Ontario, a one-stop shop phone book type thing, if you will, for various resources. So we encourage you to use them if you have any questions. And also the City of Cornwall has set up a helpline, not only just for city residents, but for those in the area as well. They can answer COVID-related questions and contacts as best they can. And so encourage you to not only use those numbers, but share them with any of your networks that have those come up. Go to my next slide here if it's going to work. There we go. I want to promote two great business initiatives that have happened in the area. And again, I'm very happy with the cooperation and support that various organizations have showed, just not to SDNG businesses or to City of Cornwall businesses, but how everybody's working together regardless of a geographic boundary. The first one I wanted to promote again is the Cornwall Area Chamber of Commerce. Greg Petersma, the executive director and team, have www.shopcornwallanaarea.ca, and that's where it has a list of businesses that have e-commerce services. And also, if you are not on an e-commerce platform of some sort, they're working with businesses to get you online and being able to sell your products. And again, this is a short-term help in COVID-19 and also a longer one that when we get through this and get back to some semblance of normalcy, you can still have that e-commerce platform. And Kelly Bergeron, I want to give credit to her. She's got some great attention through Shopify and actually I think internationally about this campaign to save Main Street for Cornwall and area. They are selling gift certificates for various businesses in our region, and I believe the number was over $10,000 or $20,000 of gift certificates to date, which is just fantastic. I want to thank our local economic development officers and staff in our respective municipalities. This slide was put together for us so you can take a look at your local municipality and know who and how to contact your local economic development official. And if you're in the counties, not only is there your local municipality there, but you've got the SDNG regional counties with Nick, and then of course City of Cornwall, Bob Peters, who many of you would know already. But we're encouraging you, if you haven't already, if you're not on their mailing lists already, please do that. They're providing local updates in your communities, perhaps of events that are going on or not going on, programs of assistance they may have, and information about the municipality, if it's water and sewer bills, if it's tax bills, whatever it may be. So special thanks to them for their work and partnering with us on promoting events such as this tonight virtually. And with that said, we've got a special guest on the line here, Andrew Seguin. And Andrew, I'm just going to unmute you here. Andrew Seguin is the founder of Seguin Financial. I think he participated last week on our call here, and a few economic development officers in the counties, in my ears must have been burning because by the time I reached out to them, they'd already partnered with Andrew on exactly this event we're hosting tomorrow. So Andrew is going to be doing a presentation tomorrow online from noon until 1:30. That's going to be talking in a bit more detail, a bit more into the weeds about the various assistance programs for small business that are coming up. And you'll see the information, the list that's there. You need to register. You can register on my website, ericduncanmp.ca/SDNG. So Andrew's here. Maybe Andrew, if you wanted to give a couple of minute just intro or preview to our business owners about what you're going to be covering tomorrow.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Eric, Jim, and Adrian having me. So as Eric was saying, I'm Andrew Seguin. I'm a founder of a bookkeeping and tax firm in Cornwall. And, you know, we manage a lot of the books for many clients, over 50 at our firm. And one of the big topics that I've been spending a lot of time on is these federal programs. So every week it was a new program being announced. You know, first started off with the CERB, and then it was the Emergency Business Account, the CEBA, and then the wage subsidy, the SUS. It's all these different acronyms, and it's, you know, overwhelming for a lot of small businesses to kind of understand what's out there. So one of the things I was doing was videos on the side, and I was doing daily email updates for our clients, but I was getting a lot of good positive feedback. So Nick Seguin at the county has reached out and said, hey, would you be interested in doing some kind of webinar on those topics? And, you know, I love helping small businesses. That's our mandate, our firm. So I said, absolutely. So what I'm planning to do in this hour and a half is really dive down into the nitty gritty on the three major programs. So the CERB, the CEBA, and the SUS, talking about eligibility, how to apply, making someone ineligible, how much money they can potentially be getting, and also be talking about the actual different payment deferrals that Jim mentioned about briefly. So the WSIB and employer health tax is a big one, the HST deferrals, income taxes as well is a big one. So I essentially really want to dive down into the weeds on those topics because there's so many questions. About a week and a half ago, I spent 2 hours listening to 4 tax lawyers talk about the wage subsidy. Had a gin and tonic. It was a pretty relaxing weekend for me, but it was a lot. It was a lot to take in, and these are 4 tax lawyers having troubles understanding the tax bill. And it's very important to understand how to apply if you're eligible or not. So I really am going to dive pretty deep into those topics.
Wonderful. Well, we're looking forward to that tomorrow. I believe, I look at Adrian, we've got several dozen, I believe, registered already.
Oh, nice.
To do the same. Again, the website, just to RSVP to get the link similar to tonight, to be done through Zoom, ericduncanmp.ca/SDG. So Andrew, thank you for what you're going to be doing tomorrow and for your involvement. I know we became connected through the Cornwall Chamber's Facebook page. You had been partnering with them and posting some updates. I was even getting some information on federal programs and details through you. So I appreciate what you've been doing.
Absolutely. I'm happy to help.
Wonderful. And I just want to touch base on this for those of you that joined last week. And I confirmed with Andrew as we were in the waiting room before the event to make sure I'm on the right track with this. Nia, a lawyer in Cornwall, had asked a question last week asking for kind of a clarification on some of the employee paid contributions, CPP and EI and those types of things. And I just want to clarify right now, Andrew will go into these details tomorrow. I just wanted to follow up as I promised I would. GST and HST have been postponed. Those payments have been postponed. However, those regular employee paid contributions are not, unless you qualify and can go through the emergency wage subsidy. So there's been some confusion that people think all the payments like GST are postponed until the later date. That is not the case. However, you can read this here and you can see the slide tomorrow that for businesses that are going to be qualifying for the wage subsidy and applying online, there will be an ability, it says that they're proposing, details to be finalized, of course, about employers being able to hold back those employee paid contributions in lieu of what subsidy they'd be getting back from the government. So Andrew is an example of an issue he'll address tomorrow. And again, we'll continue to communicate with you as that portal for the wage subsidy goes out. But just wanted to clarify that that's not a universal postponement on that at all. It is only the GST and HST and some of the other ones that Andrew mentioned at a provincial level. If you are still working, if your employees are still working and you're still paying them and you don't qualify for the wage subsidy, you're still going to need to pay that regularly if it's on a monthly or quarterly basis. And again, as we get more details on the wage subsidy, how you'll be able to hold that back if you qualify and how that will work out will be to be determined on that end. Good news, we just got this confirmation from Jim today, McDonell, that our next town hall is going to have an agricultural focus. And that's going to be on Monday night at 8 p.m. Again, you see the information, of course, for the RSVP, ericduncanmp.ca/ag. And you can pre-send your questions in. And I appreciate Jim not only being a special guest again or a co-host with me, but confirming that Ontario's Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, the Honorable Ernie Hartleman, is going to be a special guest on with us that evening. So Ernie will not only bring updates, but as all these sessions go, we're going to get into questions and for local farmers and those involved with the agri-food industry can have a chance to pose their comments and feedback and ideas to the Ontario Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. I will say it's for Stormont, Dundas, and South Glengarry residents, not because I have anything against anybody else in Ontario, but we're only limited to a few hundred spots in the queue. But look forward, and I appreciate Jimmy arranging that with Ernie Monday night, 8 p.m. Through Zoom here again. I just want to touch base quickly, and then we'll go to questions, because I know we want to do about a half hour of questions tonight at least, is some further information, and I shouldn't say further information, but just the details on Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance. I've had a lot of questions and a lot of relieved landlords and those that rent commercially about this program. And I just wanted to put these 3 paragraphs in, that the federal government is looking at this program of forgivable loans for a portion and providing other loans for other aspects to commercial property owners who in turn will lower or forego the rent of businesses for the months of April, May, and June. And again, the government has said because it's a provincial jurisdiction, the federal government will be supporting this financially, but they need to work out with each province of what's going to happen. And again, just because of the times we're in, you'll see the last note, more details to come soon. I was hoping perhaps to have something tonight. We don't yet, but I just know that if you're a landlord or you are renting, there's going to be a program here that I think may assist, again, through a combination of loans, including forgivable loans to some portion for commercial property owners and landlords. So stay tuned for that. We'll update you by email and on these sessions when we get more. Second last slide, the federal government announced some funding for rural communities through the Community Futures Development Corporation Network. I believe my friend Leslie Thompson is on the line here tonight, which is appreciated. I might ask her to be our special guest at our next call within a couple of weeks to discuss this when more details are announced. But they are going to be providing access to capital loans and access to assistance through our local CFDCs. They proved themselves quite well in the first few days of the COVID-19 pandemic. They originally had a $500,000 loan program, and that was fulfilled and used within about 2 or 3 days. So they have the ability to work with a local environment, with local businesses, take a look at your balance sheets, and for businesses that may be falling through the cracks on some of the programs we've already described in the last couple of weeks, this may be a way to access some interest-free or different types of loans. As always, the details to come, the amounts, the type of businesses and those things and how they're going to qualify. But I do give credit on the reputation of our CFDC. They're able to adapt to a local context. I will suggest now, and there's a few people I have been speaking to that I will link to Leslie by email, but you see her email address there. If you are falling in the cracks of the available programs, might be best to wait for Andrew's presentation tomorrow, but is to connect with Leslie and be on what I call the waiting list of potential applicants. And we're going to partner. I had a great call with Leslie yesterday. When the information's available, we may look at doing a bit of a webinar similar to this to make sure we can get the word out to as many businesses as possible. Now, my last slide before questions is people often ask what files I'm working on in terms of being in progress as advocacy for our local businesses. We've seen some positive changes on the payroll numbers, as I mentioned last week. We've seen some changes on the emergency response benefit, and we've seen the government move on some of our suggestions, which has been appreciated. There's still a few more that I am personally and many in our caucus are advocating for. Just noting on here, the payroll limit for the Canada Emergency Business Account, that's the $40,000 loan, $10,000 of which is forgivable if it's paid back by the end of 2022. They lowered the payroll to $20,000 and raised it all the way up to $1.5 million. That drastically increased the number of businesses in our community that were eligible, but it doesn't cover everybody. For small business owners that take dividends out, or if you're a sole proprietor, they are not qualifying for this right now because the only way they're considering payroll is through your T4 summary last year. So if you take dividends out, you're a sole proprietor, you're reinvesting in your business, you have a valid case and you are a contributor to our economy, but don't qualify for that. So we're continuing on that issue. RRSP withdrawals, we've had some business owners in an urgent cash crunch cash out some of their RRSPs. For an example, I had a business owner in the community take $100,000 out for his staff to cover wages and paid a $42,000 penalty. So what we're asking is for consideration that if those individuals can pay back that money in a reasonable amount of time, that penalty be waived or forgiven, considering the circumstances. So I'll continue to advocate for that. And lastly, I know I've spoke to a lot of people that fall through the cracks in the wage subsidy, particularly with the 15 or 30% drop in revenue and how that's equated for. The government's given some flexibility on that in terms of March being 15%, but I'm speaking to a lot of business owners that aren't meeting that 30% or just barely not meeting that 15%, but they're having added expenses in terms of their labor, in terms of PPE, in terms of procedure, including having extra labor to add to their expenses. So I'm just throwing this out here as a possibility of perhaps a sliding scale, if you will, on the wage subsidy. If you haven't lost exactly 30 or 15%, something other than the 75% is certainly better than nothing in not qualifying. So those are just a few examples of things we're working on and wanted to give you an update on. So with that, I believe we've got all that in less than half an hour. Good. I will turn it over to Adrian, who's going to start going through the raise your hand feature for questions that are on the line, and also some of the email questions we got in.
Perfect. So I'll just remind everybody, because a lot of people have joined since we started. If you are interested in asking a question at this point, like I said, we're going to devote a good half an hour to try to get to your questions here tonight. I would ask you to use the raised hand function on Zoom. So if you scroll down to where it says participants, you can click on that and you'll see a little button where you can, on the bottom right, where you can click raise your hand. And then that will notify me that you'd like to ask a question. I can then unmute you and you'll be able to ask your question to Eric, Jim, or Andrew. I had a question come in via the chat function too. So we'll start off with that, as people might be a little shy to ask their questions, but has to do with the center's, the CDC guidance. Will they be looking at allowing critical workers, including those in the agri-food sector or agricultural sector, to return to work if they are asymptomatic and appropriate precautions are implemented, as suggested, like floral greenhouses? The challenge will be get these up and running will be lack of PPE. Do you have any plans on how this need will be met while maintaining the frontline workers' PPE? So having to do with the supply of PPE.
I'll defer mostly to Jim. I will just say on here that we will likely discuss this Monday night on our agricultural town hall. But my colleagues, several of my colleagues in Ottawa in our Conservative caucus did send a letter to the Minister of Agriculture asking that across the country with planting season and just food supply chain issues, that all agricultural workers be deemed essential workers for the purpose of getting through the planting season and getting access to what is needed, and to continue any issues with the food chain supply. I will just defer to Jimmy, as again, it is decided on a provincial by provincial basis, but I know at a federal level, we're trying to get a national recognition of that. Jim?
Well, I know Minister Hardeman talked about it a week and a half ago about trying to expedite getting these foreign workers in. I know it takes a while, and they have to come in and self-isolate for 14 days, which is an issue, but they're trying to make it work as quickly as possible. I don't think we have as big an issue here. It's more of an issue in southwestern Ontario. I know of a few farmers that have foreign workers in the dairy side, but it is an issue, and it is something we've tried to expedite. So.
Okay, I had another question emailed in. So I would like to know what the government is looking at doing for small businesses that have no payroll and cannot therefore access the emergency loans. It seems that there are a forgotten group that the emergency bailout is not capturing.
So on that again, I'll just to my point of work in progress. For those that are sole proprietors, those that take dividends and not payroll, we're working to address that. And I'm actually hoping through the CFDC program of the loans that they have available. I'm hoping that those types of businesses may be able to qualify for the CFDC. They have a bit more flexibility in terms of the eligibility and the ability to work with the business, look at their balance sheet, look at their financial situation, and determine whether a loan there would be adequate. So I am cautiously optimistic that the CFDC program and funding may address that. Regardless, I do believe that the federal government should amend further that CEBA loan, that $40,000 loan, to acknowledge to a certain degree or percentage dividends from the business owner or a sole proprietorship and how that's worked. I think that would open up again to several more businesses that would qualify and keep them afloat. So again, those are the two things. One where I think there's a path, and one where I think there needs to be a path is that we're working on, but certainly on the radar, and I hear that loud and clear, and I'm pushing for it.
Another question that came in, this would be more addressed to you, Jim, and it's about retail store owners and Ontario's phase or plan to phase back in to other sectors of the economy. Looking at the potential of doing something as in taking appointments to allow them to come into the stores and shop, where they're able to maintain those safe distancing practices. Is it something on the radar for the province?
Well, I'd say we're looking at making some changes towards the end of next week. Minister Fideli is seeking information. I forwarded on about some of the businesses that can't offer today, why they can't get into curbside in the cases the ones that don't have curbside. And for the larger stores, I think I heard somebody kick around when a person per 1,000 square feet, and suggested those numbers to them. We do it in the grocery stores, it works, and we should be able to try to get things going. Reminding that our medical experts are really cautious about advancing the employment too much without, until we get our personal PPE equipment up to standards. And we have enough today, but if we see a surge come through or a doubling of the healthcare, we may have the hospital spots when we don't have the equipment for the health workers to actually use. So that's a real problem. So we're in with the federal program that's looking at trying to secure the equipment across the world, and we're say through Ontario Together trying to repurpose a lot of our manufacturing over to producing this type of equipment. I know we have local companies that are making the coverall type, that protective type equipment, and the shields, and we have many other companies are making masks across the province, and the ventilators. We have a couple of the car companies have repurposed to make ventilators. There are issues around getting certain sensors that we're trying to fix because they come from actually Honeywell, and that was a week ago. So some of the ventilators were ready except for that one sensor, which of course tied the whole system up. So anyway, lots to come on that, but we are looking at that's a message at our government's hearing, and I know our premier has been very much pro-business in his 2 years that we've been in government, and he really is worried about coming out of this if we don't. But everything shows if we come out too early and have another bump, we'll be worse off.
If I could, Adrian, just to hop in, it's not a federal jurisdiction, but I'm just going to make a commentary if I could, just to build on what Jim said. And I think I said this last week at our business town hall, our first one, and I mentioned it at our public one, our Facebook Live we had on Tuesday night. I just think the more we repeat it, the better that it is about the comments Dr. Paul, the analogy that Dr. Paul had about where we're not going to see the economy, a light switch just turn on and everything go back to normal. It's going to be a dimmer switch in terms of phasing and slowly going back to some semblance of normalcy. And just following up with some people last week, I had to laugh a little bit because maybe their example wasn't the best, but I think on the wording as we go forward for people to consider, the public and the business community to consider, is that as part of that dimmer switch, I think when we start adding to, people are saying, well, we add to the business essential list. I think the essential business list is what it is for now. I think what will get added to it is a separate list of what are, for lack of a better word, the low-hanging fruit, the safe types of businesses that can open first safely, that can do social distancing, that can keep people safe and continue to flatten the curve. So for an example, I know last week we were talking about golf courses, and there was also marinas that were raised as well. Those are possibly, I'm not an expert, I will defer to those and review what they say, but some of the social distancing practices there are easier than what something else was. And I had somebody comment to me in one of my calls. They said, well, if people are going out in the golf course, that's not fair. I'm going to start my baseball team up. I thought there's a little bit apples and oranges between golfing and, for example, some other recreation activities. My point being is I just want people to get in the mind frame as when the time is right, when it is safe to do so, and that dimmer switch starts to come on for our economy. It's not necessarily the most essential first or an order of what's most essential. It's what is most safe to do. And I think we need to have that, frame that properly, that we're not picking favorites one over the other, one's more essential than the other. It may be a case of what is the safest way of doing it. So I just want to make sure we can maybe try to set the tone or the context as we start to go to that phase, whenever it may be. I'm just, so you can tell, a little passionate on the wording of that.
Yeah, and I might just add something. We talk every day about the number of the deaths in our long-term care homes, and the lack of equipment that we have for the nurses and the healthcare workers and the cleaners and the people that work with them. And if we see an increase, I mean, we have a shortage today. There's a shortage right across the country. We would be putting a lot more people in jeopardy, and that's really the issue here. Is that, yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot, but we're already at our limit. And I've gotten calls, and I know that I see the news reports, like I'm sure everybody else here does, about workers saying, well, I'm given 2 masks a day, and that I'm told to make them last. But they're not doing that because of the money issue. They're doing it because they just don't have the supplies. And if we were to increase it by 10%, there's, you can imagine how the problem would escalate, because we're barely keeping ahead of it right now. And I know that we were disappointed the other day. We were hoping for more supplies coming in from outside the country, but it didn't happen this week. So those are key issues, and that's what's really weighing into a lot of our schedule, trying to get these essential businesses back to work and making. I mean, we made the list shorter, not because we wanted to, but because we saw what was happening and we had to do something to control the number of people dying. And again, today we had in the province, 54 people passed away. And it's pretty well averaging around 45 every day for the last month. So it's a critical situation, and we're trying to handle it the best we can.
Okay, if anyone again is interested in asking questions, just use the raise your hand features. For those that are calling in, I will, to raise your hand, what you need to do is just press *9, and I will be notified that you'd like to ask a question. We have a question here from Paul LeBlanc. Paul, I am unmuting your mic.
Yes, my question, I know that Eric, you mentioned that the federal government is working on trying to get the mom and pop businesses, the businesses like ours, our vineyard and winery, to be able to fall into some of the categories. We do have employees, but our employees come in like contractors because they're seasonal workers, just like seasonal people, and they have to do the work, and the work has to be done now. Of course, we've lost all of our events. Our doors are closed and everything, so we have no income coming in to be able to pay for that. And on top of that, if it's not done, if the wires aren't put back up that broke through the winter, and the pruning isn't done, we'll suffer for 3 to 4 years down the road. Now, I understand that the federal government announced $9 billion for students in that. Social distancing isn't a problem in my vineyard. You can social distance and do the work, not at 2 meters, but at 20 or 30 meters. You've been to my place. You know how big it is.
I may have had a
Has
glass
anybody, has anybody on the federal side, as well as the provincial side, thought about all of the money that you're going to give the students because they can't go to work anywhere, but those students could come and work with us? We've had students work in our vineyard. We have people, I have one employee that right now that lost his job that comes in and works in the vineyard. He gets a timesheet. I pay him $15 an hour, but that money's going to run out because I have no money coming in, and I'm not available for any one of those things in that, because we're mom and pop business. We've been building it for the last 15 years and that. And so if we're going to give money to people to stay at home, there are situations like us where we could coordinate it. You guys were talking about going into grocery stores and doing social distancing and so forth, so on. I don't even see the guy that goes and works in the field. We text, he comes in and he goes. He uses the four-wheeler. I've got hand sanitizer from King's Lock. Spray the four-wheeler down and I'm good to go. So we do practice all those things and do that. So there is a way for us to not go down the tube, because we do need, and I'm not alone. There's other businesses, there's other vineyards and wineries in the area. They could benefit by that. So is there a coordination being done for the people that are getting money on a monthly basis and that are staying at home that could be used, okay, to be able to support us?
So at a federal level, I'll address part of it, Smokey, is on the program. I think the CFDC, and I do see Leslie, her camera's on here. Hello, Leslie, from the CFDC. Smokey, I think that's a perfect example of where the CFDC loans may work in your situation more specifically than some of the others. I do think, and again, where if we had that more flexibility in the CEBA loan, for an example, if your bank or your lender or provider which you do apply through there anyway, they're the ones that deal with your credit line. They're the ones that deal with your financial situations, your projections. I think they should have some more leeway and flexibility on whether that loan would be conducive for you. But I'm hoping the CFDC program can help fit that mold. I'll just repeat what I had said last week at the end of our first town hall when Dr. Paul was our special guest. And I'm not sure if you were on it or not, but I know, for example, Rory from Summer Heights had commented on it, is start to write down these examples now and get them to Dr. Paul of the Eastern Ontario Health Unit and into Jim to feed up to the chain. So just what I had said before about businesses that are relatively safe to do, that easily can do social distance, that are easily safe to do, and are time sensitive like yours, get them in writing so you're in the queue. And when we're feeding this information up, and we've seen changes being made for the positive, particularly on my side of the federal side, when we're getting that feedback up. So I don't think, without getting into students that are off work and need to do it, I would rather just say you have the loan to do what you need to do. The flexibility when the time is right, or the social distancing aspect, that is alleviated in the time frame that is safe and best to do so, and you can hire the people that you need to do what you need to do. Get us out of the way as opposed to linking. I'm sure you could easily find students that can come and work for you in today's environment when the time has come. But I'll let Jimmy speak specifically on the actual the wineries aspect and in opening up.
Well, you're not protected under the agricultural side, and you could operate today. Getting the money and the employees is another issue, but agriculture is deemed one of the essential services. So, and industries that support agriculture are included in that as well.
So maybe, Smokey, what we can do is we'll get you connected tomorrow with Dr. Paul just to get the confirmation on that agricultural side, and perhaps you'll be able, in that exemption agricultural list, if that does fall under there, that might be able to alleviate.
Agriculture is deemed essential. Yeah.
Perfect. Good.
I have a question here that maybe Andrew might be tailored a little bit to you, because it's pretty specific. Hasn't to do, we are a small business. For CEBA, we met the T4 wages and business number, but their bank account was not identified as a business account by their bank. So therefore they're not eligible. Is there anything they can do?
Yeah, so one of the eligible requirements was a few things. So as Eric mentioned, the $20,000 payroll minimum for 2019 in your Q4 summary. But you also needed to have a commercial bank account. One of the things I always advise for all my clients, small or big, no matter what, is separate your personal and business, right? Separate that from day one in your financial. So have your personal bank account and your commercial bank account. It's one of the things I learned from day one, accounting school, Candy at the Cornell Business Enterprise Center. We'll talk about that. It's separate your bank account. And unfortunately, one of those requirements was to have a commercial bank account open at a financial institution prior to March 1st. So at this point in time, maybe I say reach out to the account manager and see if you can sort of dictate that bank account was open in a personal name, but it was strictly used for commercial. Maybe you can try to go through that route.
And just a note on a bit of a different topic, but on the CEBA loans through banks, I've had several, I've got about 4 or 5 now, and I've actually heard kind of indirectly through some folks who are in commercial banking at big banks, and actually one at a credit union. The application is online and is submitted, and there's an automatic rejection if something as simple as the business name does not match exactly what is on CRA, and there's these small, annoying little automatic rejections. I've been talking to a few colleagues on both the government and the opposition side on this about getting just 2 humans to talk to each other. And if that's the only problem, that should be something that should be solved in a matter of a 60-second phone call to verify a letter or an ink and a period not being on there or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of very technical issues in terms of the application process. I'm hoping they're going to loosen up, that as opposed to be automatically rejected, they could be sent to a human to review and perhaps give a quick okay, as opposed to just rejecting it and not necessarily knowing why. And it could be as simple as some errors in the name code or something that could be easily rectified between the bank staff, the business, and the government.
So essentially, I would agree with Eric. So I would reach out to your account manager on whoever you bank with. Just tell them the problem, because at the end of the day, it could be a bank account that is open on a personal name, but it's used strictly for commercial purposes. That might be, considered on-site, and you might be able to open up that CEBA loan.
Okay, we have a question here from the audience. Burkett Foster. Burkett, go ahead. I've unmuted your mic.
More a statement than a question. So Storm Internet Services is a business that I'm the CEO of, and I just wanted to make sure people knew that we have actually done some tremendous work, and the team has done tremendous work in making a protocol so we can actually go in and install during this time. We've also done some stuff to up the network here and there, but it was less than 5% that needed to be upped. So everybody should be getting good service from us. If you're one of our customers, I would like to say thank you for being a customer. And our team is all busy. They're even working weekends now.
Thank you, Burkett. And just to build on that, we had a question last week about internet connectivity. And actually on Tuesday in my Facebook Live town hall, I cut out because my internet service was not good in South Mountain, the height of irony. And just if you didn't think that you felt bad enough for me from that, I was on a House of Commons virtual committee today in a bit of a passionate rant on something. It was constructive. And about halfway through, I cut out and I got disconnected in the middle of my House of Commons committee. So I came back on to my colleagues. I said, as soon as I get done this, I'm going to the Industry and Economic Development Committee to advocate for even better rural broadband and internet service in Eastern Ontario. So I will just build on what Burkett has said to that point of where internet service providers are working. Adrian forwarded me an email today from Bell as an example as well. Storm has been doing fantastic work, and congratulations to Burkett. You are the new I think the lead or main owner of Storm. You'd made quite an investment in taking even more of Storm leadership role financially and strategically. And that business is based out of downtown Chesterville and does a fantastic job. So I'm just encouraging people before, I know internet connectivity is a challenge and there still are certainly big gaps. But if you haven't already, please reach out to your internet service provider to see if there may be extra enhanced services that are available for you. I called Eastlink for an example for my house in Winchester. I'm in South Mountain living with my family here the last month or so. But when I called, they said, oh, well, we can actually triple your speed. And so we have Storm here at our family business, works great. And we're always working back and forth on how we can, if there's any ways we can continue to improve the service. So contact your internet service provider. If you are at home, where you have a residential plan, they may be able to up you to some commercial level access or different speeds as well. So just try to one-off those. And I've heard from a few, actually even more this week, that have done that and got a little bit better speeds and better deals and whatever it may be. So I would encourage you, if you haven't done that, to do that when you get a chance. I think Burkett got his hand up again. We want to unmute Burkett again just for a supplemental, perhaps?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the things we did was we also up the limits on people so they can actually get an extra 100 gigs for the month without going over their cap. So most people can't use the extra 100 gigs, which is great, but we've done that to help people out during this time because there's more edutainment going on than we want. The other thing is for people that are trying to do a VPN, like maybe our member of parliament might be doing, they might actually find that they need to have 3 up. 1 up won't do the trick. And so while we do offer commercial services, we are also offering some residential services that have 3 up and 20 down or 25 down. And that's within the residential packages. We do have some offerings in the commercial range that go up to 100 meg symmetrical. So probably not for everybody in this room, but certainly for some people it might be useful.
Wonderful.
And Eric, you're always welcome to get that.
Thank you, Burkett. Just a quick note going back, Adrian, in the chat, Jenny McDonell had a comment here just about the business, the CERB account. I'll just read that out so people are aware. Also, business account must require only 1 signature. As a piece of advice, the account manager can change it to apply and then change it back. So again, that's an example of a technicality, I guess, or perhaps. So again, work with your branch manager to address that if you can. Thank you, Jenny, for the tip on that.
Okay, I had another question here that Jim, it'll be directed to you. We've had quite a few of these over the last week or so as the weather is getting nicer. The City of Ottawa released a statement earlier this week stating that they're allowing landscaping companies to go ahead with limited services as of May 1st. Has there been any progress in allowing landscaping services in this area? And why is this not a provincial decision as opposed to a municipal one?
Well, it is a provincial decision, so I'm not sure that the local health, medical officer of health has certain rights, but I think that I know landscaping, especially, there's been quite a bit of discussion, and as we stand today, it is not open for operation during these times. Now we're hoping that's one of the ones that I think will change, and we're talking May 4th, so that might be 1st or 4th. I'm not sure what the dates are, but the 4th is a Monday, so I think that's probably when those things will take place. And we're kind of expecting that might be one that will be lifted.
Okay.
Adrian?
I was going to say, it's an example of a business that can be done without any close contact, and I think that's what we're looking for. We are let's say quite careful about where we're going with it, but there are the easy ones we can do, and hopefully we can get those. I was suggesting we could use the health units to evaluate them locally, just make sure that a business can operate and knows how to operate properly, because they'll be policing it. And I think that locally, Dr. Paul is certainly in favor of that. And it's the same old thing, one size doesn't fit all. And you can have a very safe business, but if you don't do it properly, then of course you're not advancing the cause, and you could be another one that's a lot more risky, but if you do it properly, well, then it's a matter of what you can do and still limit the spread.
If I can just make one quick comment, Adrian, on that, just a random thing that I don't have final statistics on, but I'm doing a bit of research on in my spare time, aka midnight when I can't sleep, is point of sale machines. I am, as part of social distancing and preparing businesses, for a transition to more social distancing. I'm interested in some of the tap technology, and particularly the fees that are charged for point of sale machines and that type of thing. So I'm interested in the credit and, well, debit, but credit card industry, for an example, with tap. There's different fees associated and different percentages that are done. I'm quite curious to learn from their industry. Since the start of COVID, I'm guessing the use of cash as a percentage of overall sales in our economy has dropped, I'm going to guess, significantly, and machine sales, point of sales machines have changed upwards. So I'm looking to see if there may be some temporary flexibility in the fees that are charged to better enable businesses and more cost effectively be able to take those safer, easier, and cheaper if it can work out and not cripple another industry, which I don't think, from what I've seen, could do that. So I'm working with some finance colleagues just to pose some of those questions and maybe be a piece of help for retail businesses and physical distancing.
Okay, we have a question here from Janice Castleman. Janice, go ahead. Your mic is unmuted.
Thank you. What I'm looking at, I'm a healthcare professional. I'm a registered massage therapist. So I'm looking at the area of healthcare professionals. So in our field of like physiotherapy, chiropractic, massage therapy, dentists, like we all have hands-on, right? We're close. So are we in a field then who are going to be later to the end of being introduced back in? I know we've had people who've come to us and said, like, when we have frontline people who are working all the time and they do need care, right? They need people to get them through these times. But so well, I guess I'm wondering, like, what kind of protocols can be put to us that we can get out there and start helping the people who need it? Are we going to be last on the end to, because we are a touch profession, right? Any of the healthcare professionals who are not actually, you know, doctors and nurses, but these things, we're touch people, we're close proximity. Where do we fall into this area of getting back?
Well, I guess it would be a provincial issue. So I would think that you fall into the same category as doctors or dentists, I'm sorry, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, barbers, hairdressers. So, but there's a lot of, you know, with the physiotherapist, I know people that have had recent operations and have not been able to get to, you know, get in and get the therapy they need. So it is, I think it is high on the totem pole as far as letting it go whenever you want. I mean, dentists have been closed again for, unless it's an emergency, for the same period of time, and that's also a problem. So there's a lot of those touch professions that you know, people rely on and have been relying on for years, and we have to get them back as well. It, no question, will mean extra attention to your personal protection equipment, but so it is on the radar, and it is just out of necessity, really.
I think Jim would be best to address that again at the provincial level, but Janice, that's a good point, and I know I see Jimmy making notes.
Another question came in, and I see we still have Leslie on the line. Leslie, this is kind of almost directed to you. Having never worked with Community Futures before, I'm wondering if these will be loans, lines of credits, or grants. For those of us businesses that are tapped out of loans or lines of credit, will there be any help, like interest-free or anything of that line? And actually, Leslie, I'm going to unmute you so you can actually chime in here.
Put you on the spot, Leslie.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for the question. The truth is that we haven't been given by the federal government yet the parameters around what this funding is going to be, what it's going to look like. They've given us an indication that it is likely to be a 0% loan. They are still investigating if there could be a non-repayable contribution or component rather. I do have a call tomorrow morning, and we're hoping to find out some more information about what it's going to look like. Our first round of funding was with our own internal fund, not the new government funding. And that was at 0% for 6 months, no interest for 6 months, and then there was a 2.95% interest rate. So I have a feeling that the new money is going to look a little bit different. We're trying to make sure that there's some consistency in the money that we're getting out the door, but I don't know yet, but it's a matter of days, I hope, before we have some more information about what it's going to look like.
And I will say in our call with Leslie yesterday, we're looking at doing a seminar perhaps similar to what Andrew's offering tomorrow, specifically on what that program may look like in terms of trying to get the word out to as many potential applicants as possible and addressing those questions when we do get them. So Leslie's been a great partner, and well, as soon as she knows information, I know information, we're going to get it out there to clarify. And I would just say, echo what Leslie said, we're trying to advocate for something similar to what the CEBA loan is as well, to help perhaps, for myself anyway, advocating to try to help some of those people that are falling through the cracks otherwise, as I mentioned. But more detail, and unfortunately I hate saying that, but more details to come in terms of what exactly it is.
Okay, our next question is from Rory McClellan. Go ahead, Rory.
Thank you, Eric, for hosting this, and of course, Jim for participating. Jim, you alluded earlier to the landscaping, and you commented about possibly May 4th as a return for them to work. And of course, the golf industry is demonstrating its ability to be able to self-isolate. Are we in that consideration at all? Obviously, we can promote activities for people to get out and break that that cabin fever, and it's mentally stimulating. Is there consideration in that aspect? Of course, I've sent both you, Eric, and Dr. Paul what we're proposing to maintain that self-distancing.
I'd say golf courses get discussed, not as much as landscaping on our calls, but it does get discussed. It's an issue, and I guess it's one of those, I wouldn't, my best guess, it wouldn't be May 4th or May 1st, but not too long in the future. I think a lot of it really hinges around, can we get enough of our protection equipment for our medical providers now. We're really don't have enough. We have the minimum. We have some 24 hours calling up or getting it out to them, but we're really cautious, and the medical authorities are telling us that they don't want us to open it up at all. So we're trying to weigh those two together and trying to do a lot to get this equipment manufactured. And we're thinking, at least the last I'd heard, that next week is going to be kind of a big week with being able to produce the equipment ourselves. I think they're hoping to have ventilators coming on. I know we ordered a pile of them. The test kits are coming in. The new half-hour test kits are coming in. Should start to be available very soon. There's a lot of stuff happening very quickly, but it's just not there today. And I know we have another update tomorrow morning, so it's a kind of a continual update. So
maybe what we'll do, Adrian, is I see Andrew has his hand up. Maybe we'll address Andrew, and then I believe Ken Turnbull from the Morrisburg Canadian Tire. He and I were going back and forth. He may be on the call. I know Jim spoke to him before, but I know he wanted to discuss some of his concerns in the retail rules. But Andrew, we'll have you go first there.
Yeah, I wanted to actually expand on one of your topics, Eric. You mentioned about the source deduction. So just to make sure that's super clear, is that people still need to remit your source deductions. So that's, make sure you do not miss your deadlines. So it's the 15th of the month if you're monthly, or 15th if you're quarterly, or if you're accelerated. You're still required to remit your source deductions. So your CPP, EI, and taxes, even if you're eligible for the wage subsidy. There was a sort of portion where they will reimburse your CPP and EI if your employees are furloughed, if they're not working, and that has been approved. But make sure you're still remitting your source deductions. So that's number one. Number two, although HST payments might be delayed, your filing is not delayed. So that's a big one. I want to make sure that people are aware, especially for quarterly remitters that are due at the end of the month, still file your HST. What's going to happen is you'll file it, you don't have to pay it. And if don't be scared if you get a letter in the mail that saying that you're getting interest. They're going to essentially do some back end stuff and waive it, but you still have to file your HST return at the end of this month if you're quarterly. Make sure you file it, because if you don't file it, they will not waive the penalties. That's been confirmed. So you will get penalized if you file after April 30th. So make sure those two big ones that you're not missing out on. The third thing too is that if you can't make it tomorrow, which is totally fine, the CRA has released a spreadsheet on the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy. So the 75%, they released their own spreadsheet, which has been very helpful. I've been playing around with it yesterday and today. It's not super complicated, but it could be overwhelming if you're not used to spreadsheets. I will be going through a sort of mini detail walkthrough tomorrow, and if there's interest next week, I can actually do a full 1 hour sort of walkthrough. But it does give you sort of instructions on how to go through the spreadsheet to get your 75% wage subsidy, which opens up Monday. So it's really important to know is that Monday applications are going to open. And to do that, you need a CRA My Business account, or you can actually ask your accountant and bookkeeper to do it on your behalf. So there's two different options. So if you're one that gets very anxious and stressed on spreadsheets and numbers, that's okay. Ask your accountant or bookkeeper and they might be able to help you out.
Awesome. I've already made some notes, Andrew, for my next MP update by email and by Facebook. GST and HST certification. I told you at the beginning, I'm learning new things.
Yeah.
If you read the fine print, this is exactly why we're doing this and why we're doing it tomorrow as well. So
Perfect.
Appreciate it. Adrian, can we unmute Ken and see if he's still on the line here?
He is, yeah.
Ken, if you could just untap your mute, I believe. Let's see if he's on by video.
Yep.
I see a video there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Ken. How are you?
I'm good, guys. Thanks a lot for having me.
No problem. Thanks for the chat last night.
Yes, it was good chatting with you, and I spoke with Jim today. We spoke for 15 or 20 minutes, I guess, and I guess my concerns are probably threefold here. Number one, you know, from a federal standpoint, you know, we have some 60 plus employees. We've kept everybody going, but the 30% reduction in volume or sales would qualify you for some sort of possible subsidy. You know, we're going to drop in excess of, in the last 2 weeks here, about $225,000. So really it's $10,000 a day. And we don't qualify at 30% down. So to me, it's a bit of an issue as far as that there has to be some sort of understanding or leeway in that part. The second part to it is now being pushed back to May 12th. That has significantly impacted our garden center, which is another $300,000 to $500,000. All of a sudden, I'm in the $500,000 to $700,000 range. It is very, very, very difficult to continue to keep people going when you're bleeding that kind of cash. And the part that really, really sticks with me and really annoys me is that we currently sit in an unlevel playing field. We've got garden centers setting up in town here, preparing to sell that merchandise because they are grocery. You go to a Walmart, you go to a Costco, those are American-owned, American-managed companies. That money is leaving our country to go back to Bentonville, Arkansas. They sell pharmacy, they sell grocery, but they're selling a whole pile more. That's non-essential items. I can't do it. I'm Canadian-owned, Canadian, locally owned, locally operated. That money stays right here in our community to pay our people. When you add it all together and tie it up, I do not understand why that is being allowed to happen. How is this possible? Who is policing it, and why are we not policing it? That is an unlevel field. Yes, there's people that are far worse off, but we're talking about a significant amount of people right here that are going to be unemployed very, very quickly.
Okay. Okay, so Ken, yeah, just to build on the federal aspect of the wage subsidy, I appreciate your email back again today with some information. I think, and it was my fault, I gave you the wrong code to get into the meeting, so I think you might have missed the first few minutes, but I did mention, full disclosure, Ken was a perfect example. What I mentioned about is even a sliding scale or some flexibility in the wage subsidy of 75%. For sales and those types of things, mentioning the extra labor costs of curbside service, PPE, other measures that are in place. So looking at some flexibility or perhaps a sliding scale. I did speak to some colleagues today, briefly today, but that's something I'm going to be looking at is some flexibility. And you've outlined a perfect reason as to why there could or should be. If there's a drop, may not be 30%, may not have been the 15% last month, but it certainly is amplified, and not only the loss, but the increase in, for example, labor that you have, and that needs to be taken into account. And I'm using you as an example, so I appreciated you giving me those notes after our chat last night.
And I think, sorry, I think the one thing that is we're using three times the amount of labor for, you know, significantly less sales, just based on the amount of manpower to get to curbside, and we're certainly grateful to be able to do curbside and home delivery when other people are not selling their product at all. But you're right, it is a significant uptake in labor to make that happen.
Noted for sure, and I appreciate you being able to allow me to use you as an example. Jimmy, did you want to address, just kind of wrap up with the address there on the retail rules and stores and those types of things?
Well, I mean, it all around the food. I mean, when they made the original rules, we have to get to groceries, so they opened it up and they made it to any store that sold groceries. And I know the comment made by the minister at the time may not be fair, but they have to have something that they can put in place and at the same time restrict the amount of business being done to the point where we can actually control the spread of the disease. I mean, on the opposite side, we're being criticized that we didn't cut it down fast enough and more because of the the problems we're having with our most senior people. So there's two sides to the argument, and medical experts are really telling us that they don't want to see us opening up the economy. So it is discussed often. We're trying to look at some of the low impact businesses, but as I say again, we're right on the verge of not having enough equipment. So when we start to get more of that personal equipment for our healthcare workers, I think you'll see an easing, and it doesn't necessarily have to wait till May the 12th. It'll wait till we get some of that equipment. And it's one of those things that it's hard to tell, and we're hoping the projections where we would start to receive some of that extra equipment internally this week and next week. So we're almost most of the way through, and I'll maybe have a better answer tomorrow. But it's really a matter of trying to get through. We're relying on the federal government's taken over, as I say, any of the procurement for anything international, and it's a wild west out there. Every country in the world is fighting for supplies. So as they saw with those 2 planes coming back empty, it's not because it's just hard to get this equipment.
So again, Ken, thank you for raising that there. And Adrian, I think we're kind of looking about quarter after 20 after here now. Jim, I'll just give you the chance, if you'd like, just to re-promote the event here. Let's bring up the details about the Ag Town Hall on Monday. Did you want to speak to that and any other final comments?
Yeah, I was talking to Ernie's assistant, and he made the comment that I was asking a lot because Ernie's he has poor internet at his home, so he has to do this meeting by Zoom, some distance from his house. And I said, Ernie's the type of guy that leaves every night from Toronto at about after 7, 8 o'clock at night, heads home a 2-hour drive, and then is back the next morning by 7 o'clock. So I said, I don't think 8 o'clock's a problem. And Ernie, he came back today and he says, well, yeah, I know. He says, you must know Ernie pretty well, because yeah, he's gonna make that trip and do it by Zoom. So yeah, no, Ernie's very knowledgeable of the different ag programs. We've had him in the riding 3 times now already, and now he's going to come in by Zoom. So I think it's a great chance for the ag industry and the agri-food industry to have their questions answered, and Ernie's a big supporter of some of the things we talked about tonight, but it's trying to get through the command tables a bit tough sometimes, but he's certainly working from the agricultural side. And agriculture is one of the essential services, and any industry that serves it is also essential. So
look forward to that. And I see my friend Jackie Pemberton on here, so I know they will, our local groups will certainly be promoting this. And then just myself to wrap up here, thanking everybody for joining us tonight. This is good feedback. This is part of our jobs of not only giving you information, but getting what's working and what's not working and answering your questions. It's a key part of our job. And again, a new way for all of us of doing this in the format. Just a reminder, tomorrow, thank you to Andrew for joining us tonight. Much appreciated. And as you can tell, I think businesses will be learning quite a bit from Andrew on his on the presentation tomorrow about the different business benefits available. Friendly reminder, ericduncanmp.ca/SDG. You can register right up until 12 noon tomorrow and go from there. So Adrian, if there is not anything else.
Can I just have, yeah, I just want to have a last, we were doing a survey for the tourism industry, and I sent out a lot of emails tonight with links, but I know I don't have all of them. So what I'll do is I'll add that to one of the links we put in. We'd wish anybody that's involved, whether it be the fairs, your museums, some of your festivals in town, hotels, anybody that serves the tourism industry, we're trying to develop a program. So when we come out of this, there's some, we can make sure they're still operating next year. A lot of these programs are one weekend events. They've already been canceled, so we want to make sure that they're solvent enough to last. So if you take a look at the survey, it's a very short, it's going to ask some questions about what you might need, and just take it and submit it online. Probably take about 10 minutes, and we're going to use that information in the upcoming budget.
And lastly, just to know, we got a couple of chats. Barbara Leduc, I got your note there about your location beside Giant Tiger. If you could send your note by email, I'll make sure, or to Jim, I'll make sure that he gets that. Just similar, Jimmy, to what had been said there about the grocery versus non-grocery aspect. Carol Johnson, we'll get you the slides tomorrow and the email. That'll also include the graphic for Monday night's agricultural town hall. And we will go from there. Encourage you to send us an email with any feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. And we will look forward to keeping in touch Monday night and other online town halls in the coming days and weeks. Again, we're available by phone or email anytime. And we thank you for all you're doing in these challenging times and for joining us tonight. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.